Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So yet another day of spoiler season begins, and we keep getting new and exciting things from Kaldheim. For example, on my last episode yesterday, I went over Agar the Freezing Flame that is an overkill commander that wants to wrath you and mill you to death. And if that combination of things doesn't make any sense, make sure you check out that episode. But on this episode, I'm going to be talking about a card, or at least a kind of card, that we have been expecting for quite some time. So a quick spoiler warning before we get into it. If you're not looking to see a spoiler from Kaldheim, then maybe check out one of my other episodes. Or actually, why don't you go check out MTG Remy? I mean, his parody on the Shawn Mendes Justin Bieber song Monster is still stuck in my head. Then am I the monarch? Just let me know. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm a terrible singer. Let's jump into it. So this morning, we finally get a look at the Snow Hate card that we expected. And that card is Redaine, God of Justice / Redaine Shield. And first off, a big thanks to MTG Goldfish for this translated mockup. Redaine, God of Justice is a 2/3 god with flying and vigilance that costs 2 and a white. She has snow lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, non-creature spells your opponents cast with converted mana cost 4 or more cost 2 more to cast. And then Redaine Shield is the other side, which is a legendary artifact that costs 3 and a white. It has if a source an opponent controls will deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. And whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. So there's a lot to take in with this card, so let's break it down. Redaine is essentially a modal hate bear. The front side slows down your opponent if they're playing snowlands, and it also hates on their big non-creature spells, taxing them for 2 extra. The backside is more so damage prevention and a tax on targeting. So depending on the situation that you're in or the decks that you're playing against, either side can be effective. Now, since we've been expecting a Snow Hate card for quite a while, the main question is, does this card do enough to stop Snowlands? Now, if you're not familiar with why players have been asking for or expecting a Snow Hate card, make sure you check out my episode on Jorn. In that episode, I go through in greater detail the Snow issue, but here's the gist. Basic lands are supposed to be the standard land for Magic. There aren't supposed to be any lands that are just straight up better in every single situation than a basic. There haven't really been any reasons or any repercussions for playing Snowlands over basics. So if you're willing to pay extra for Snowlands, you pretty much get an advantage. Now I know that currently Snowlands aren't that much more, but 50 cents is a lot more than 5 cents per land. And if you've got a good amount of commander decks, that can really add up. One example for a Snowland advantage is that you get access to an extra rampant growth with Into the North. Perhaps a more potent example is that you can take advantage of a mana doubler like extra player lands without any downside. And again, when it comes to actual repercussions for playing Snowlands at this point, the extent has basically been the card Melting. An enchantment for 3 in a red that says all snow-covered lands become non-snow-covered lands of the same type. So a really bad hate card that you're never going to use in your deck. Now, in that Jorn episode, I brought up an example of a potential snow hate card like a back to basics for Snowlands. Basically a card that would make Snowlands not untapped during their controller's untapped steps. Would that be going too far? Probably, but it would be an actual deterrent to actually playing Snowlands. Because if you're playing Snowlands potentially for just a minimal upside like getting access to an extra rampant growth, it might not be worth it if your deck can get entirely shut down. Now when it comes to Snow Hate, Redaine is definitely not Snow back to basics. Can it slow down Snow players? Sure. But in my opinion, it's nowhere near of a deterrent from playing Snow, even if you're just getting a minimal upside like an extra rampant growth. Though this card is flexible, I highly doubt it's going to be played in a lot of decks. Now, if the Snow Hate card was an artifact that could be played in all commander decks, and maybe it drew a card to replace itself, so it's not just a useless card in all situations, maybe then a Snow Hate card would have a chance. But this is not that. And unfortunately, I believe that Wizards has said that basically we're only getting 1 Snow Hate card in this set, and I believe this has got to be it. So I guess what they're saying is, let it snow. Terrible joke, I know. But it probably makes sense that they didn't print something in Standard that would just absolutely demolish any Snow strategy. Perhaps we'll get a more effective Snow Hate card in something like a Modern Horizons 2. Here's hoping. Now, all this doesn't mean that this card isn't effective. I mean, it does a lot outside of just making snowlands come into play tapped. So it most definitely has a place in certain decks and certain strategies. Before we jump into those decks and strategies though, let's talk about some similar cards to this one. There are a good amount of hate bears in Magic, and the first one that came to mind that this one reminded me of is Thalia Heretic Cathar. A 3/2 with first strike that has creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So this slows down your opponents when it comes to their creatures and non-basics. And the other one is everyone's favorite angry old man, Gaddock Teeg. He has non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be cast, and non-creature spells with X in their mana cost can't be cast. So this is a hard lock on those big non-creature spells, whereas Redaine is more so just a tax on them. You can still cast something with a converted mana cost of 4 or greater, it's just going to cost you more. So Redaine is obviously not as effective, but it's not going to be anywhere near as hated as something like Gaddock Teeg. Now let's talk about some strategies though that Redaine can work to slow down or shut down. The first is pretty obvious in that this episode is about this point, but it can slow down snow strategies. So if you're playing a deck with all snow lands like Jorn God of Winter will, it can slow it down. But with Jorn, it kind of only barely slows it down. Because ironically, when Jorn attacks, you untap each snow permanent you control. So you still get to use that snow land once instead of twice in the turn it comes down. Obviously, other snow decks that don't have Jorn at the helm can be slowed down more significantly. But the Redaine Shield side can help against different strategies like that of Niv-Mizzet Faroon. Basically, Niv-Mizzet can ping a lot of things down, including players. But the shield can prevent that 1 damage each time, and on top of that, if Niv-Mizzet is going to target anything, it's got to pay for it. So first off, unless they've got damage doublers, they're not getting through, and even if they do, then they've got to pay to actually deal any damage. Similarly, this really shuts down Heliod with the Walking Ballista combo. When they combo off, they can ping down all your opponents and all their things, but they can't touch you or your things. Another example will be Sir Conrad the Grim, which again is going to be taking out your opponents, but not you. And notably, it does half the damage from Purphoros, which can be a ton. Obviously, this doesn't save you completely, but it's a start. Now, when it comes to the question of Redaine being a commander or being in the 99, I'm going to lean more so to the side of the 99. Obviously, restricting yourself to mono white is a huge disadvantage. And again, Redaine is very flexible, so she can help out in a lot of different ways for a lot of different decks. So first off, a hate bear commander like Lavinia Azorius Renegade might want to consider her. She kind of slows opponents down when it comes to ramping with mana rocks and doesn't allow players to cast things for free. Another commander to consider her might be Liesa Shroud of Dusk from Commander Legends. She has whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. And the last one I'm going to bring up is one that I talked about earlier with everyone's favorite angry old man, Gaddock Teeg. Obviously, Gaddock does a better job when it comes to preventing opponents from playing big non-creature spells, but if Gaddock's ever dealt with, it can be a good backup, or you can just use the backside. Or if your opponent happens to be playing snowlands, you can slow them down. But now as this episode is coming to an end, it's time for me to give you my gut feeling on this card. Redaine God of Justice is a very flexible hate bear. In the right deck and the right strategy, she can be very effective. That being said, when it comes to her ability to hate on snowlands, it's not going to be enough to deter players from playing snowlands. While I was hopeful, it was very much a long shot to expect any kind of meaningful snowland hate in this set. Again, if Wizards wants this set to be about snow and to push snow, printing a card that can be played in any deck that can really hate on snow is probably not going to be the best standard experience for them. But again, I am hopeful that in the future, maybe in a Modern Horizons 2 type of set, that we actually get some type of snow hate that can be used in a lot of different decks. But time will definitely tell if that ever happens. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.